Thank you very much for that talk. It was really interesting sort of seeing sort of the way that the community that worked together could actually use that combination of sort of Wikidata and using the AI to actually find the sort of the entities in a way that I think last time I explored this wasn't really kind of possible at all to do at that scale sort of about sort of 10 years ago. And the next talk is from Marjory Da Costa Abreu, who's the Associate Professor in Ethical Artificial Intelligence at Sheffield Hallam University, and she'll be talking about responsible AI use and colonial collections in museums and heritage. So please welcome her. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. So thank you for the introduction, and I just want to say I'm delighted to be here today. My background is in tech, so I have a degree in computer science and then a PhD in electronic engineering. So very recently, I've started attending these kind of events from a different silo that I'm normally I was attending so far, because of specific projects, this being one of them that I was involved. And I think attending these kind of events gave me a completely new perspective of my role as a citizen who knows about tech and can design AI, and my responsibility of making sure that you guys who want to use AI know what you are doing or know what you are dealing with. So this talk is going to be a bit of an introduction of what AI can be and is or is not, and then I'm going to talk a bit about the project that we worked with as well. Right, so about a month ago, UNESCO published guidelines on how to use AI in GLAM. And this document is quite an interesting one, because it's I know it's being recorded, but I don't want to say it was written by large language models, but it's very generic in terms of the usefulness of the guidelines. So it's all, you need to be responsible, you need to be ethical, you cannot increase discrimination, but it doesn't really tell you what you need to do for those specific ends. But it's an interesting piece. So if you want to have a look, there is a link, the slides will be made available. But this is just an example of the need for regulation, or at least guidance. So I work with tech, with AI specifically, for about 25 years. And it always amazes me when people say, oh, it's going very fast. It really isn't. So all the technology that you are experiencing now, that you have access now, it has been around for 40, 50 years. It's just that now we have the resources to run it at scale. So, large language models are natural language processing. They are built on something called neural networks, which were proposed back in the 60s as to try and mimic what human brains worked. So all of it has been around for a long time. It's just that we don't have the resources. And the fact that we have big data centers and all of this that we are talking about is running on those big data centers is a point that I'm going to bring to the conversation as well. But yeah. I'm going to start with hold my hand and have deep breaths. Crash course on AI, okay? And I love Rachel's questions before lunch of if anyone could give us a definition of AI, should raise their hands, which there isn't a definition of AI. So AI is a collection of techniques, mathematically driven, which has a very bad name. So the AI community has been discussing this for a while now, that we did really bad when we named some of the technology. It shouldn't be called AI, it should be called, mathematical optimization or something else. But artificial intelligence gives the very wrong impression of what those things are doing. But I always like to bring people back to earth of what I'm talking about. And when I want to talk about this, I'm not going to talk about AI first. I'm going to talk about what AI is running on. Okay? So when I went to the university a long time ago, if I wanted to do a bit of programming, I would need a computer and I would need a keyboard, and my computer needed an operational system. And I was limited to the physical limitation of those devices, okay? So the fact that you have a mobile phone now and you can have, 10 tabs on your browser on your mobile phone doesn't mean that those things are running on your mobile phone. It's just that everything has been third-partied by big data centers. So any digital thing that you ever use will always have a hardware and will always have a software. And why do I bring this to you? What is the relevance? Is that the fact that you don't see the computers that you are running this stuff on doesn't mean that the computers don't exist. And the fact that if you are using one of those third parties cloud-based systems, your data is being sent across the world. And this is not an exaggeration. It's being sent to lots of different places, to those, very badly reputed big data centers. And you might find it, oh, this is fine, I don't care. But if you're talking about, museum collections or GLUN collections, you might want to think about what does that mean for you to have the data stored in lots of different places and feeding those tools that we are also talking about. And then the software is another point. So if you are using a piece of software that was developed by someone who doesn't really understand how coding is, so there is a lot of options for low code, no code development. I think some of them were mentioned before today already. So it's very easy to do stuff. You press 3 buttons and then you have an outcome, an output, you have a number. What does that mean? How is the code dealing with the data? So all of those things we teach in university, but the university is responsible for a small number of people who are working in the tech sector. And that in itself is a problem. We can talk about that more in the questions. And then it comes to the AI, okay? So I'm not gonna talk about the different areas of AI. AI is huge. So when you are, trying to find your way to a location, you are using a tool that is giving you a map, that's AI. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's using machine learning, which is another type of AI. A graph is also AI. If you are using Google search, not sponsored, also AI. It's not necessarily machine learning again. So what I think everybody thinks about when they think about AI is machine learning. So I'm gonna focus on that specific area for the examples that I'm going to give. But AI is much more than that, okay? And then what I like to give the differentiation of what automation is, which has been around for many, many years. So the Industrial Revolution was built on automation. So before, we needed people to do every single job. Now, if we have established processes which never change, they will always follow, step 1, step 2, step 3, they will always be like that. You can just have a computer doing it. And the computer is going to be quicker than a human. And it's not going to make any mistakes because of the nature of the task. That's not what AI does. AI receives data, and based on slight differences from each data point, it can make it can produce different outcomes. So if I like to use, the diagnosis example. So you have a breast image over there. So you can have very, very similar females in terms of what their characteristics are, their history, their medical history and everything else. And one of them might develop breast cancer and the other one might not. And what is the difference? It's tiny changes, even though they look very similar in terms of the medical records. So that's where AI comes from. So that's the problem and the solution of AI. So AI can generalize, but AI, listen to me, will always have mistakes. So if someone is giving you a product that is 100% accurate, run away. Doesn't exist. The world is messy and AI makes mistakes. So we don't want 100% accuracy. We want a tool that represents the group or the population or the data that you want to be able to generalize. So you want to make predictions of unseen data after, okay? So that's the difference between automation, I would call it stupid automation, but it really isn't, and then artificial intelligence. Everything's automation, but most of what we are talking about here, most of what people say AI is outside, might not be AI, might just be simple automation, but they are selling it as AI because it's much more fancy and they can charge more. But the things that we are going to talk about here, they are different types of AI, okay? Right. Points that I want us to think about, and this is part of the project. So I'm going to give you a bit of a background on the project that I worked with. So this was a UKRI-funded project from the call BRAID, which is, bridging the gap between the GLAM sector and the technology sector. It was a project that we partnered with the Armories in Leeds, and we wanted to draft a framework where we would advise museums on how to decolonize their collections using AI in an ethical way. So we drafted this tool. Hopefully it's going to be published by January. We are just finalizing how it's going to look like. And then in this tool, we identified, points and what you needed to be aware from your collections to take into account if you want to use AI there. And then most importantly, where you should not use AI at all because your data is not ready, because the integrity is not there, because you don't have enough information, and so on and so forth. And why is this important? So one of the things that people ask me, so I'm going to be the first person to tell you, don't use AI, okay? AI needs good quality data. More data doesn't mean better results. And you need to be really clear what you want to ask the tool so it will be able to give you what you are expecting it to give you. So any of you is able to go online, upload a data set on a tool, press a button, and get an outcome from a prediction, AI. It really isn't rocket science, but from that until you understanding what that number accuracy that is predicting means is a huge, huge step. So that's where I want to bring your attention to. And then you have, what is your data? So just give you an idea of what we identified from the work we did with the Armory. What does your data look like? Is it all the same? Is it, if I have an year, which is, 1457, and then somewhere else you have the year, which is, how far back it was collected, 400 years ago. That's not the same information for our computer. You need to have data integrity. You need to make sure that you are capturing the data rightly. And then you need to be able to assess and then train your staff who are dealing with those collections to make sure they understand what converting the physical information from the collections to the digital aspect of it. So how can they record it? They need to understand that. And what is the impact if something is recorded in wrong way or with an information that is not properly collected? And then we have the ethical and the legal aspect. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details here. This is going to be all in the document, but it's the ethical aspects we discuss every single day, and they move very fast because the technology and the access to the technology moves very fast. And then the legal framework or the regulations or the guidelines, they go very slowly because, it's just not fast enough. We don't have people working on those fast enough. And there is a lot of pressure from the companies who own all of those tools. So Rachel, again, she asked us earlier, who does that technology serve? So she gave a very horrible picture of I don't know how many people own everything that we use. So that we should always ask that question because the bias in all of it is huge, right? So we need to be aware that what can be done, we need to ask ourselves as museum collectors, as people who work in GLAM, as people who would like to have a better offer to the public who are looking at the stuff that we are offering, they can have experience as well. And then what is our responsibility? So the project that we had gave us some guidance. So I'll just give you a very quick summary of the short outcome. So AI is not an end, so it can be used to help you. So the graph suggestion is excellent, so it can help you understand connections. You can use machine learning to identify where the bias in your collection is. So you're not going to simply apply AI everywhere, try to predict stuff, and then have it done without really understanding. You can actually use the AI to identify where the bias is and what other information you need to complement where you have missing stuff. You must use the public. So especially in collections which might be controversial, they might be being questioned to be returned, for instance. I'm not going to go there. But yeah, so one of the collections that we looked at in the armories was the Indian disarmament. And there was a lot of conversations between the team, the research team, and the people from that heritage, where they felt completely distrusted, or they didn't like the way the pieces were displayed because they felt violated, they felt cheated in the descriptions and the way that specifically piece was taken, for instance. So make sure that you involve the community, especially if you have collections which are linked to specific communities. Profit-driven big tech, if I can tell you something that you are not going to like, is I wouldn't use any profit-driven AI. Designing your own AI is what is going to minimize any specific bias that you are incorporating in any tool that you are creating. So if you want to use the API from ChatGPT, you are welcome to, but you must be aware that all the bias from all the text that has been written, they use to train their models, will come with it. So it is as simple as that. There is no turning back. And then, so you can say no. You don't need to use AI if you don't want to. So you can wait a bit more. You can consult more specialists. You can work with people who have a bit more experience. So you can, take this one step at a time. And this is what I wanted to present to you. So if you want to know more, I'm going to be in the break. And please have your questions ready. Thank you.